Hey y'all. Okay, that was terrible. Before I drop all of these, we're gonna go over the 11 books that I read in the month of November, my November wrap up. So I do have 10 in this stack, but I read 11 this month. One of them was a book that I read on Kindle. It was from an author that sent her ebook to me, so I will talk about that. But we're gonna do this in order. This is the first time that I've ever done a wrap up in order, and it's because I have my little list here. I'm so prepared. It's ridiculous. Anyways, so the first book of the month that I read was Beauty and the Blade by S.C. Grayson. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it. It follows a girl named Contessa. And first of all, this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. It follows a girl named Contessa. She has to go and live with this guy named Nathaniel Woodrow. Problem with Nathaniel Woodrow is that he is the head of this so-called like lion gang, basically. And they leave marks in their victims by slashing them like claws almost, you know, like the beast. Beauty and the Beast. Anyways, and so she has to go and like live with him, but her and her dad are trying to take him down from the inside because her mother got killed by the lion gang. You feel me? So that has a whole host of issues on itself. I will say I really enjoyed it. Like I really enjoyed it. It's a super quick read. Like I don't think it was more than like 250 pages. Yeah, it was just at like 250 pages and I really enjoyed it. And there's a second one in this little like interconnected standalone. I think the next one is like Little Red Shadow, which is Little Red Riding Hood, but I really liked it. I flew through it in like 2 days, I think. I don't know if my reading vlog for this is actually gonna go out. It might not. Anyways. I will say what I liked about this was like my issue with reading Beauty and the Beast retellings is that we spend so much time like building up to her being in the castle, and then we spend so long with that just like her hating him and then her being in this castle and like that's it. And that's normally like pretty staple for Beauty and the Beast retellings. It's really normal to spend such a long time in this castle with her alone, and it becomes repetitive after a while because I've read quite a few Beauty and the Beast retellings. And this one by far I feel like was the best in terms of we didn't spend too much time alone and hating the beast, nor did we spend a lot of time before the plot, like just like kind of setting up for it. Like we started the book on her wedding day. So it was a very quick read. You didn't spend too much time in any one spot. And you also got to form a genuine connection with the beast. Like it wasn't like it was just like one day they hate each other and then the next they don't. It was him being a genuinely decent guy and her just like not seeing it because she thinks that he killed her mother. Obviously, there's going to be some animosity there. I wouldn't like him either. The second book that I read this month was Dror Resident by Lexi Wood. The author sent this book to me as well. I feel like half of this month was just like author read. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just like a nice little like, not necessarily a dark romance, but it was more like a spicy like nurse doctor romance. It follows this girl named Cassidy and she switches hospitals because she had a rough time at her old hospital because of something that happened. And then so she switches to a new hospital, and at this new hospital she meets this guy. Problem is this guy is her ex's best friend. So they both work at the same hospital and they're both friends. Like they're really good friends with each other. It's this whole thing. So I know I got this comment whenever I talked about it on my TikTok about how like there were nurses that followed me and they hated reading like nurse doctor romances because it can get really like unrealistic in terms of like the actual hospital side of things. The author is an actual RNA. So I don't think that it's going to be unrealistic. I would not know any different, to be honest with you. The extent of my knowledge goes into Chicago Med and House. So I couldn't tell you either way if it was realistic, but I will say I don't think it's not because, like I said, she's an actual RNA. So I really enjoyed it. It was a good book. I didn't have like super strong feelings for it just because like super spicy romances are not necessarily my niche. Like I don't go and like pick them out. I will read them like every once in a while, but it's not like my main choice, if that makes sense. I enjoyed it. It was good. It was very good. It was very entertaining. Then one of my favorite reads for this month, I read Hes My Grumpy Neighbor by Anna Conwell. This was such a sweet, cute little romance. It followed this girl named Juliet, and she lives in this town called Peach Hollow. And you guys, when I tell you that this town is giving Stars Hollow from Gilmore Girls vibes, that's exactly the vibes that this little town was giving, and I was loving it. I read this like towards the beginning of the month, so I was getting into like the fall season. This book, I don't think this book was set in fall. This book was more set in winter, but it was still giving me fall vibes, and I loved that. So I was living for this book, okay? Guy moves in right next to her, and his name is Adrian. And Adrian is mean. Like, okay, not necessarily like mean, but just like super closed off and also like kind of mean. And Juliet is just like this super sweet person who moved to Peach Hollow to get away from stuff in her past. And so, like, as her and Adrian start to find out more about each other, obviously they start to develop some feels for one another. And I will say, like, this is a super short read. Like, I think it's like 200, yeah, it's 260, it's less than 300 pages, but it just flew by. It was so good. It wasn't like cheesy, really. Like, I had such a fun time reading it. I would absolutely go back and read this in a heartbeat. I know that there's more to these books. They're like interconnected, like standalone. So I think the next one follows his brother, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm super excited about it. I love Anna Conwell's writing. It's super fluffy but good. There's still some substance to it, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, this was one of my favorite reads of the month. The next book that I read, I got sent the ebook form, so I'll put the picture up, but it was Compulsive by Leah Fairchild. And I did a review for this on my TikTok. And here's the thing. This was one of the more conflicting reads that I've read. I mean, it was at the beginning, and then less so as I was reading it. It's a therapist-patient romance. Like, whenever she first explained the book to me, I was super iffy on whether or not I wanted to read it, because, like, there are issues with that, obviously, with the therapist and the patient, but as I was reading it, it did not read weird like that. Like, it was, so, like, I'll give you a for instance, okay? This book follows a girl, I can't remember what her name is, but she is a compulsive liar. And so she has this therapist. She has to be in therapy in order to keep her job. And so she has this therapist, and her therapist is like, look, you're not doing what you need to be doing in order to make this problem, like, not be a problem. I have to leave anyways. Here's a list of therapists that can help you and take over, but I'm done. And so she's looking for a new therapist. She doesn't want a new one, but she needs one, and she knows that she needs one, but at the same time, she doesn't want one. And so she ends up meeting this guy who is a therapist in the same office as her last therapist. And she, like, mildly stalks him and, like, is wanting to be with him, but he's like, hey, yo, you need a therapist. Like, I can be your therapist, but I'm not going to date you, yeah? And so they end up, like, hatching this deal where they decide that they're going to be friends, but he's going to help her through therapy. Their relationship starts to turn. Now, here's where I feel like some therapist-patient romances can go wrong. Like, you only see them in that, like, in-office dynamic. The reason why I think this one worked was because you didn't see that. It wasn't like the only time that you were watching them interact together was in the confines of them being a therapist and a patient. You were seeing them inside, and you were seeing them outside of that, and you were seeing them grow a relationship outside of it. While they were inside of it, it was still, like, fairly professional, but then on the outside was when they started to obviously develop feelings for each other. So I feel like in that aspect, it worked more because it wasn't, like, so obviously weird, if that makes sense. But I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. There were some characters in there who were super freaking funny. Like, every time they came on the scene, I was, like, immediately giggling. There was still depth to the story. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I will say the first, like, 2 chapters really caught my attention because the writing, and necessarily, it wasn't, like, creepy, but it was very, like, difficult to root for the main character. Because of that, like, I wanted to keep going because I was like, this main character is not very likable, but at the same time, like, I want to see what happens. So it was a very interesting read, and I would generally say, like, if you want to pick it up, go pick it up. It's on Kindle Unlimited. But yeah, I had a good time. Reading it. So yeah. Then the next book that I read this month was Secrets of the Catalog by Amelia Spencer. This was another author read. This follows a girl who finds out that she is a librarian, and it's not like just like a normal librarian, obviously. Each librarian in this central library, they are like keepers of worlds, basically. And so, like, they have the ability to travel inside of the worlds that are in these books. Some books are banned. They're not allowed to travel in there because they're dangerous, and some books are good. And it's this whole thing where she finds out that she's a librarian. She finds out that she has family that are librarians. It was one of the more, like, creative books that I think I've read in terms of and stuff like this, just because I feel like if you're new to being a fantasy reader, this would honestly be kind of a cool place to start because you get a lot of different fantasy worlds in one. So you're not, like, spending too much time in one. You're getting to know, like, the basic rules. You're getting to meet a lot of these weird, like, different creatures that are pretty common in other fantasy books, but you get to meet them all in the same book, and you get the love interest. You get a little bit of a love triangle. It was a very solid book. I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, I didn't really have too strong of feelings for this one. I just enjoyed the ride. Then, maybe my favorite book of the month, Once You're Mine by Morgan Bridges. The author sent this to me as well. She reached out to me and asked me to take a look at her book. And when I tell you, I am so excited and happy that I did. Y'all, I freaking loved this book. Would you take a seat? So this follows a guy, and he is an attorney. He has this trial with this dude because he's trying to put this guy on trial for murder. And at this trial, the man that is being put on trial has a daughter. And daughter went on the stand. She was like there. The attorney becomes obsessed with the daughter. And we pick up after the trial has taken place. Attorney has dad. So he Daddy-o. This was one of the most fun of like the books that I read this month, I will say. I got Bailey to read it, and I think she rated it like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. My rating is a 5 out of 5 stars. I genuinely enjoyed this book. Hayden can do no wrong in my eyes. Okay, if you guys are wanting like a stalker romance, but like a good one, and super fast paced, by the way, like I flew through this at a much quicker rate than I thought I was going to. Go give it a read. It's on Kindle Unlimited. Both books are on Kindle Unlimited. This is a part of a duology, and where you leave off on this one, it's kind of like a cliffhanger ending, so you're going to want to go right into the next one. Do it, friends. Then for a video that I'm doing, I think it's going out next month, but I have Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I don't want to give too many thoughts on this because I am doing it in that video, but I will say I rated it a 3 out of 5 stars.
Hey, hi, hello. This is Editing Jolie to tell you that I have since changed that rating. It's gone up to a 3.75, and I'll explain why in the vlog that I'm talking about in this video. But just know that the writing on the screen says 3.75 because that's what I ended up rating it this week. I filmed this like a week and a half ago. So my rating has changed since then. Just wanted to clear that up in case you got confused about the writing on the screen versus what I was saying. Proceed.
Okay, it was 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't like love it. But it was just because I feel like I'm so familiar with the Peter Pan retellings. Like, Peter Pan is my favorite story of all time. That is my Roman Empire. I think about that constantly. And so reading a retelling on Peter Pan, I feel like, especially this one, this kind of retelling, was not my favorite. But I'll get into more of that in the video. So you'll hear my full thoughts on it. Next, I have The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams, and I actually listened to this on audiobook. I didn't read this physically, and this was such a cute, like, little fluffy, I'm just gonna go ahead and put this down because it's super shiny. Here's the thing, I feel like an audiobook obviously can make or break a book, but I feel like I have such a hard time listening to audiobooks for romance specifically, just because I feel like there's not enough happening in the general book to, like, keep my interest whenever I'm listening to the audiobook. Whenever I'm listening to, like, a fantasy or a thriller or anything like that, there's always enough going on that I'm like constantly trying to figure out what's going on. But with the romance, it was just kind of like, you know, fluffy. But I will say the narrators, they had like 2 narrators. They had one for the guy and one for the girl. And it was really good. I really, really enjoyed it. I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5 stars. And I talked about this on my Goodreads as well. It was because we were reading about characters who were out of college already. So they're like my age. But they're acting like they're in high school. Like it was very much like 90% of this book, it was like, oh my gosh, I really like them. Do they like me? They can't like me. Like, I'm just, no. They're showing, like... They're doing every possible thing to make me feel like they would like me, but yet they don't like me. I'm disgusting. Like, that was pretty much most of the book, and I feel like if it had been more of, like, adult reasons why they couldn't have been together or why they shouldn't have been together, like, that would have been more understandable, but it was very much, like, high school. That aside, because that was really, like, my only issue with it, was, like, they had been best friends since they were kids, and something happened, and they stopped being friends. And then they came back into each other's lives. And so we're picking up after, you know, they're back in each other's lives. They're like, well, I don't want to go back to that place where we aren't talking again. And da-da-da-da. So it got very repetitive after a while. But I still think it was a cute book. Like, I think it was a cute book. There is no spice in it. So Sarah Adams, I believe, Sarah Adams as a whole just writes books with no spice in it. I know that one for sure does not have anything in it. They talk about it, but there is no, it's a closed door romance completely. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite. I think that listening to it on audiobook made it for me because I had zero interest in actually picking up the physical book. Whenever I would pick it up, I'd be like, I really do not want to read this. And I would put it right back down. I listened to the audiobook and it was super easy to get through. So then I read I Kick and I Fly by Ruchira Gupta, and I've talked about this quite a bit. I have a review coming out on my TikTok for it. I'm going to put this down because this is shiny too. If you don't know who Ruchira Gupta is, she is an activist who helps women and children, and I believe it's just like India and like the surrounding countries and stuff like that, but I could be wrong. But she, for a long time, was teaching them Kung Fu to help them take care of themselves and to help them, you know, be able to fight back against this trafficking ring that's really big in places like that, and in America, to be honest with you. But she's an activist for women and children and trying to keep them out of that and helping them to escape it and stuff like that. All of that was a very, very big plot point in I Kick and I Fly. It followed a girl named Hira. She is at risk of being sent into trafficking, and so she ends up getting help from a hostel owner, and she teaches her Kung Fu, and she teaches her how to defend herself, basically. She ends up using Kung Fu as a way to get out of the situation that she's in because her family's very poor. They don't have means to just like up and leave. While all this is going on, at the beginning of the book, she had a best friend named Rosie, and Rosie ends up like disappearing. And so everybody assumes that she got taken by these traffickers who like run rampant through her streets. They control the police and everything. Like it's a really, really bad ring. I absolutely love this book. It was a 5 out of 5 stars. I cannot, you know, be inspired by Ruchira more. She's just an amazing woman. It was an amazing book. It's a YA book, so it's nothing too heavy, but it's definitely very difficult to get through at some parts because you know that all of this is true and it's happening and it's not just fiction. You know, like this story may have been, but it's not something that doesn't happen. So it's very difficult to read, but I'm super grateful that I did end up reading it. And if you guys want to go get a copy of it, please go pick one up. Go support Ruchira. And I can't say more positive things about the author and that book. It was amazing. The next book that I read this month was Lark by Alex Astor. For all of y'all who were saying like this book was sex, I enjoyed this book. Look, here's the thing. One of my pet peeves is I'll talk about a book and I'll talk about how much I enjoyed it, how much I liked it. It was so good. And without a doubt, I always get some comment that are like, I hated that book. It was terrible. The writing was awful. Look, you can simply just say, yo, I read that book. It was not for me. Glad you enjoyed it though. Like, it's not that serious. But why would you dump on a book as I am mid reading it? Like, I'm literally in the trenches reading this book. And you are just popping off at the comments about how bad it is. Yo, nobody needs that. Nobody needs that. Okay? I don't need it. I don't need any kind of negativity in my life. I already live in my brain. I don't need your negativity. Rant over. That just irritates me. So if you don't know what Lark is about, it follows these 6 rulers every 100 years. These 6 rulers, or the 6 rulers that are currently ruling, have to go and basically like almost fight to the death to try to break this curse and to win a bunch of power. And so we were following one of the rulers, and there's a little love triangle, which I really liked. And it was overall a very good book. You guys, stop hating on it, okay? This feels like just like a hate train at this point. Like, get off of it and admit that this book is good, because it is. And then the last book that I read for the month of November was Key Ridge by Alison Specca. She sent this to me. This, honestly, you guys, is like the perfect winter read. It's set in Key Ridge, Colorado. If you don't know anything about me, Colorado is my second home. Don't get me wrong, I hate snow. Okay, no, I don't hate snow. I hate being cold, okay? So I live in South Texas. Great. It's a great baseline to start with. Then I go to Colorado like every year with my family for vacation, and I love it. I love it. We're going for spring break, I think, and I'm super excited about it. Anyways, I love this book because the main character is from Florida, and if, again, you don't know anything about me, I'm from South Florida originally, moved to South Texas. So I went from hot to hot. Anyways, and she moved to Key Ridge to kind of get away from her old life because there was some crappy stuff that happened. And she ends up being like this kind of like business manager for a ski lodge, and she's helping the ski lodge to, you know, rise from the ashes. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, and she meets this guy named Giles, and Giles is a ex-professional snowboarder. He's just mean to her at the beginning of this book. But then, of course, you know, rivals to lovers things happen, and she's just like this super like bubbly, sweet personality, and he's just this very mean and closed off dude. But it was really good to like see him start to open up to her and start to, you know, be nicer, thaw out a little bit, because it's not everything has to be you know. I don't know what that meant. Anyways, I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. I think overall I had a really, really good reading month. I think only 2 books were rated below 4 stars for me, which is really good. Normally that doesn't happen. So yeah, that was a good reading month. I'm super excited for next month. Well, technically this month because it's December 1st that I'm filming this. I have a lot of books to read this month and not a whole lot of time. So it seems like I need to get on the ball a little bit there, huh? But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm not going to be doing a TBR for this month because I have a lot of videos planned and I don't want to like spoil anything, if you feel me. So I'm not going to do a TBR, but just know that there's a lot of books on this list that I'm going to be reading for December. So I'm super excited for all the content that's going to come out for that. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This was very fun. I love doing wrap-ups just because I love reminiscing about the books that I read over the course of the month. Because once I read it, I kind of like shut my brain off to that book and I go on directly to the next one. So I don't really get to spend a whole lot of time like thinking about the book that I read unless it was like a book that like made me think more. I don't know. If you guys want to see me on other places on the internet, I will link everything in my description. All of my setup is in my Amazon storefront, so if you ever have any questions about that or the books that I have on my shelf, everything is in my Amazon storefront. I have a book club. It's on Fable. The link will be in the description as well if you guys want to join that. We are currently reading Love Redesigned, and I'm super excited about it. Again, and thank you guys for 1,000 subs. Y'all are the best. I cannot believe I'm at 1,000. Anyways. And I love every single one of you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.